guys, it's me, Miss Norris, and today I'd like to share a fun read aloud with you of the story Herbert the Timid Dragon. Herbert the Timid Dragon was written and illustrated by Mercer Mayer originally in 1980, and it's a very fun story. If you're ready to hear it, I'm ready to share it with you. Here we go. Herbert the Timid Dragon. Now, does anyone know what timid means? It's another word for kind of shy. Now, could you imagine being a dragon and still feeling pretty shy? You'd think they'd be very, very brave. And here's some treasures that are being guarded, possibly. I'm not sure yet. And this is our dragon, Herbert. Herbert the dragon lived in a snug cave at the edge of the wild forest. Every night at bedtime, Herbert read a story from his favorite book, Knights in Armor. He loved the exciting tales of the brave knights and the princesses in distress. "Oh, I wish I were a brave knight in armor," thought Herbert. So he's reading lots of stories at bedtime about knights and princesses, and he wishes he could be brave like the knights. But Herbert wasn't brave. As a matter of fact, Herbert was timid. You might even say he was afraid of his own shadow. Oh, it's behind me. Oh, what's behind me? Oh, I'm scared. Could you imagine being scared of your own shadow? I've been scared by my shadow before, I think, but I quickly realized what it was and wasn't scared anymore. Even so, Herbert decided one day to leave home and seek adventure as a knight. He packed his bag and started out along the dusty road. So sometimes you just have to decide you're going to do something, and then you're going to do it. And he has a little sign on his door that says, "I have left to seek adventure as a knight, Herbert." So off he goes. Do you think it's that easy to become a knight? Can you just say, "I'm going to be a knight and I'm going to go out and do it"? Maybe. Let's see what happens with Herbert. He hadn't gone far when he came upon a broken down carriage and a princess in distress. "Oh boy," thought Herbert, "this is my first chance to act like a knight." "May I help?" Herbert asked. The men fixing the carriage didn't understand dragon talk. What they heard was a terrible dragon roar, and they ran for their lives. So he was off to a good start. He found a princess in distress, but he didn't realize that not everyone was going to speak dragon, and so they were scared. Four soldiers stepped out of the woods. Herbert didn't know they were the princess's royal guard. He grabbed the princess to save her. The soldiers began to shoot. Dragons are too scaly to be hurt by arrows. But Herbert was scared. So Herbert ran and ran. So he got scared, but not hurt. But he ran and ran with the princess. Dun, dun, dun! He ran straight home to his snug cave. Herbert slammed the front door and locked it. As for the princess, she began to rant and rave. "You silly-looking dragon," she shouted. "When my father, the king, finds out that you've carried me away, he's going to cut off your head." "Oh my," thought Herbert. "What have I done?" So even the princess isn't happy, because maybe she wasn't in distress. Maybe she was just going home. And now she's mad, and she says her father is gonna get him. He's a little scared. He opened the door so the princess could leave. "Oh no," she said. "My mother told me never to go out alone after dark. I'm staying right here until my father comes to rescue me." "Perhaps the music will cheer her up," thought Herbert, and he turned on the radio. But the princess shouted, "I hate dragon music!" And then she broke the radio. So maybe saving princesses isn't all it's cracked up to be. She's very angry, and even though Herbert is saying, you could go now, she says she won't leave because her mom said not to go out by herself after dark. And he's trying to make it nicer, but she's breaking the radio. Herbert fixed a great big bowl of soup for the princess. "Icky, sticky dragon soup. Ugh," cried the princess, and she threw the bowl at Herbert. He put clean sheets on the bed in the guest room, but the princess screamed, "Dusty, musty dragon bed! Yuck!" Then she tore the sheets off the bed. So she's not a very good house guest. She won't eat the soup. She broke the radio. She won't eat the soup. She won't sleep on the dusty, musty dragon bed. And not only does she not like them, but she wants to destroy them too. The princess grew more and more angry. She smashed Herbert's fine dragon bone china. She tipped over his bookcase. She broke all of his toys. The princess carried on all night. Herbert got very sleepy. So it just kept getting worse. She was tearing up stuff. Looks like she's hurting his pet. That pet looks really scared. She turned over his bookshelf. She broke his dishes. And the only thing that Herbert got was tired. In the morning, there came a loud banging at the door. Poking his head out the window, Herbert saw a knight in armor. He looked brave. "Come out and fight, you terrible dragon!" shouted the knight. Herbert was frightened. And whenever Herbert was frightened, he got the hiccups. Herbert hiccuped and hiccuped. Clouds of smoke poured out of his nose. Needless to say, the brave knight galloped away. So the brave knight went to go rescue the princess and shouted terrible things at Herbert. But when Herbert gets scared, he gets the hiccups. And when dragons get the hiccups, smoke comes out their nose, which scared the knight away. That afternoon, the king and his army marched into Herbert's front yard, ready to attack. One look at the cannon and the battering ram, and Herbert was terrified. And whenever Herbert was terrified, he began to cough. Dun, dun, dun. Now, if he hiccups and smoke comes out of his nose, what do you think happens when he coughs? I think you're seeing where this is going. So everyone is, the king and his whole army are outside, his battling ram, all of his things. There's Herbert Dragon's mailbox, and Herbert's getting more and more scared. Herbert coughed and coughed and coughed. streams of fire and smoke poured out from his nose and mouth. The king's cannon melted. The battering ram caught fire. The army turned and ran away. So, do you think Herbert is trying to hurt anybody? No. But do you think that the king and his army are very scared? But they don't know that this is only happening because Herbert is very scared. Now look what you've done, you terrible dragon, said the princess. You've scared away my father's army. And with that, she pushed Herbert aside and left, slamming the door behind her. So he has a little sign by his door that says, "Ring bell and wait." He's getting a little delivery from the post office. And the princess is mad. She's so mad she can't believe it. She says, "Look what you did." And now she's is leaving the house and is slamming the door behind her. Do you think Herbert's going to go after her? Would you? I don't know if I would. She's messed up his house pretty good. Herbert's heart was broken. He knew he had made a mess of things. Oh, I guess I'm just not cut out to be a brave knight, he thought. And for days, Herbert just sat in his cave, feeling very sad. Then an old friend dropped in for a visit. "Herbert, have you heard the news?" he asked. Of course, Herbert hadn't. His radio was still broken. "It's just awful," said the friend. "After you melted down the king's cannon and broke up his army, the evil Duke of Dingbat and his men kidnapped the princess and carried her away to Castle Grouch. The king has no army to rescue his daughter." So now there's really big trouble because Herbert has taken away the king's army and all of their weapons. And now someone has the Duke of Dingbat has captured the princess and no one can get her back. And he has a little sign that says, "Sticks and stones can't break my bones, for I'm just too scaly," by Herbert Dragon. So he says no one can hurt him because he's so scaly. Well, dragons usually have treasure lying around, and Herbert just happened to have a wagon load of gold in his cellar. "I will go to the Duke of Dingbat and trade this gold for the princess," thought Herbert. "It's the least I can do." So even though the princess broke his cave, Herbert still wants to help. And he's going to take this wagon of gold that he just has laying around and see if he can buy back the princess from the Duke of Dingbat. Herbert knocked at the gate of Castle Grouch. "Hello," he called. "I'll trade you a wagon of gold for the princess." But the Duke of Dingbat didn't understand dragon talk. What he heard was a terrible dragon roar. "A terrible dragon has attacked," he shouted. "Dump a ton of rocks on him." So the Duke's evil men pushed a ton of rocks off the castle wall, right on top of Herbert. Of course, Herbert wasn't hurt a bit, but Herbert was horrified. And whenever Herbert was horrified, his nose tickled. And whenever his nose tickled, he sneezed. Achoo! Now, if his nose makes smoke when he has the hiccups, and he makes fire when he coughs, what do you think happens when he... Achoo! sneezes. The sign here says, knock, then look up. So that you can see all the rocks coming on you. Achoo! Herbert sneezed so hard that he blew a huge hole in the wall of Castle Grouch. You don't have to think very hard to know that the Duke and his men tried to slip out the back door, but the Duke had lost his key. They were trapped. So they got a hole, and the princess now she's kind of looking forward to seeing Herbert. And they all tried to go out the back door, but they don't have the key. And now they're trapped. Herbert took the princess back to her father's castle. He made the Duke of Dingbat and his men pull the wagon load of gold all the way. So he took those trapped men that had stolen the princess, and he made them carry him and the princess and all of the treasures back to her father, the king. You've probably guessed that Herbert was a hero. The king made him first knight and grand dragon of the kingdom. Then the king gave a big party with music and dancing and presents for everyone. And down here it says, Dear Herbert, here's a lizard just for you, the king. You can see the king is giving Herbert a present of a lizard in that box. That's kind of nice. And good for Herbert, he's the knight. Herbert was a knight in armor at last. But not a brave knight in armor. He was still the same old timid Herbert. Of course, nobody knew that except the princess, and she never told anyone. However, she always made sure that no one ever scared, frightened, terrified, or horrified Herbert again. So, he's a knight, but not a brave one. And the princess knows all of his secrets and protects him so that he doesn't get scared, frightened, terrified, or horrified ever again. Because whenever he feels scared, frightened, terrified, or horrified, something bad happens, and it usually includes fire. The end. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you really enjoyed the story of Herbert the Timid Dragon. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button at the bottom of the page. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to me. If you're not a subscriber yet, click that subscribe button down there at the bottom of the page. And don't forget to click the bell so that you're notified when there's new content. I hope to see you all again real soon. Bye-bye.